And whilst I was there actually seeing him in person, I was like, dude, I want to do what you do. Like, you're in Bondi Beach, you're on the laptop, you know that laptop lifestyle. I sometimes just like affirm it. They're like, oh, what do you do? You watch people on Zoom. That's a really good question. Growth is a big value of mine, and like for me, like consistent change and getting used to that. Ben Mark pushed you to go to Dubai as well. Where the body goes, mind follows. Yeah, that's so strong. What's been the biggest thing you've worked on for yourself this year?
Hey guys, thank you for tuning into this episode. Today we're joined with Irtaza, who is an online coach. I'm going to let him do a quick introduction. Irtaza, do you mind just giving us a quick one for who you are, what you do, and we can kind of take it from there?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, finally. We've been connected for quite a long time, and the last time I saw you was probably like 2 years ago, if not. So thank you so much for having me on. So I kind of keep it short and sweet, but I'm Irtaza, based in Manchester, and I have founded our coaching program, which is the Method Coaching, and we tend to target mostly career-driven men and women that want to use their body and take it to the next level to push their life forward. In a nutshell, that's kind of what I do.
And one kind of big thing, we're probably diving straight into it, but one big thing that I wondered was like, what was the transition from you going to like the safe traditional kind of role and job towards coaching?
It's such a funny story. So I got into this from like, not many people know I actually got a maths degree. And I used to be an absolute nerd back in the day. I was studying until like 4 a.m. just trying to get like the perfect, the dream job that you normally get in the corporate setting. So I studied maths, and I found like in the university days, I tend to find myself like, you get two different crowds. You've got the people that socialize and party, and you got the people that get their head down, focus on gym and a bit of their fitness. You always get like one or the other, and you get a bit of a hybrid, but they always find themselves in one camp. And I kind of started with like both, and then I found myself more into fitness. And it wasn't until I hired my first coach, I just finally got like a little bit of like a taste of what coaching feels like, and actually taste of what real fitness looks like. Then the next year, I actually got a scholarship to study abroad in China. So I lived in China for a year. And whilst I was there, I spent so much time by myself. I actually started like, discovering like, is this the path I want to go down, and what do I actually want to do? And for me, I've always had a coach. It's probably like the last 6-7 years, I've always had a coach the entire time. I was going to speak to my coach. I was like, dude, how do you actually get into this? And I'm kind of interested to see if this is an area I want to like explore. And that was actually in person as well. So when I was in China, it's like super easy to get to Australia. So I just actually took a trip to Australia to meet my coach. And whilst I was there actually seeing him in person, I was like, dude, I want to do what you do. Like, you're in Bondi Beach, you're on the laptop, you know that laptop lifestyle. And I kind of got in for that. But that's how I slowly like got the interest for it. And then when I came back from China, I was going to get studying and get qualified for a personal trainer. And I worked in Spinningfields, Pure Gym. That's 4 years ago now, actually. And then I didn't tell anyone what I did. I was like, I don't want them to find out. It does not seem as a good job as being a personal trainer. They're like, what you did, you're a personal trainer. I was like, cool. Sorry to hear that. It's like, you don't really get like that same reputation as you get if you go to like a traditional route. And for me, it was more of a case of like, I was working then in finance as soon as I finished university. I worked in personal training, and I was started to dabble with the online. And then for me, I just found over time, this is like kind of what I thought about all the time. And it was lockdown where business started to grow, and I finally saw myself actually doing this full time. And I was like, right, now it's like sink or swim in a sense. And I pretty much jumped in with both feet, and I never looked back since. But it was funny because whilst I was doing that, everyone was like, what's he doing? He's spending a life personal training, and I had a lot of doubt. And I remember family were like, didn't obviously appreciate it. Friends were like, oh, what's he doing? He's lost himself. Yeah. But for me, slowly starting to like back myself and like see that actually this is possible, and ask for help from mentors, from coaching, and studying the best as well, I found myself making a career out of it. And it wasn't until last year, like being able to go to my parents and be like, actually, this is working now. And they were like, they actually see it working, like you're traveling, you're doing these events. And they found it for the first time. I'm like, I'm actually quite proud of you. And that was like, right, finally it's working after like 5 years of trying to convince you. So it was more like the traditional route was working in finance, which I did. I did this on the side. But it took a lot of time for everyone to accept what I did. I didn't even use that as like something that was important, but it just took a little bit of time to obviously get everyone to be like on the same page. They're still not, but that was like the journey.
Yeah, do you have it where people maybe to some extent even now, like do you still have it where people still try and like old friends, old people from school, like say, oh, why are you doing this still? Like
Yeah. They you do get comments like that. I remember someone was like, "Oh, you personal trainer?" I said, "Yeah," and they were like, "Oh, you're not doing finance?" I'm like, "No." So, oh, I mean, if it fails, then you can go back, right? I was like, "Yeah." I remember hearing that. I was like, "I'm gonna prove that wrong." You do definitely get that. Do you get that often?
Yeah, it's hard to explain like what you do and the like anything with it. I think it's
I sometimes just like affirm it. They're like, "Oh, what do you do? Do you watch people on Zoom? Are you doing exercise, doing planks?" I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty much all it. That's all I do. Stay behind Zoom and watch people sweat."
yeah, and it's one of those I imagine for you especially you could like it is sometimes like having that thing of like just saying like, I'd make like this amount or whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes when they see you traveling and obviously doing certain things like events, they're like, "Oh, wow, you've actually built something up." But it is funny to have like old friends. You tend to find new people as well. Like you probably had the same. Like, when you went to Dubai, you meet people that are doing the same thing. So the conversations like goes like rarer and rarer. But I find it goes pretty rare, and then sometimes you get like a little blips of it. But most of the time, not everyone I know, they pretty much do the exact same thing I do. So it's almost like the conversation's kind of gone out the window. But you do get a little bit of it, and it kind of like motivates you a little bit. To be fair,
Yeah, you've got like a little list of people to.
hit list.
One thing you mentioned at the start was like with China and being more towards just being in your own kind of space and doing it, and like I've wanted to mention this for a while, but to me the impression I get from you is like, and one thing I think about you is your superpowers. You're very like good at just being around people and like speaking and connecting. I don't know, has that been something you?
It's I find it hard to mix in tribes. Like honestly, I think most of the time, like growing up, I was always trying to find. I'd almost try like change myself to meet someone's or a group's need in a sense. And being in China, it was like you get people like because I'm not really someone that values too much of a social time. Like my social life is go out for a dinner and have a good night, get back by like 11 p.m. And see, like most of the time when I was there, the people I met, they were like into the party scene, and I was like trying to mold myself into someone I wasn't. And I found myself kind of losing myself when I was doing that. So for me, it was like I found it hard because I didn't do the things that most people did. Um, and I just find it hard to relate most of the time. But I think majority of the time, I think I'm almost not fitting. And you kind of find it easy to fit in when you got people that similar values, and like you speak about growth, you speak about like fitness, business, kind of like real life topics rather than like short term topics. So I find like depending on the person, I'd almost try to like always have a conversation with people. Like I remember sometimes I was at an event and I didn't know the person I was speaking to. And you're just speaking about horses, like super random. And like I'd always try now, like actually like almost being that person that can be like a bit of a chameleon. But previously I struggled with that because I didn't have any relatability. So
Yeah, so was it like what's the kind of stuff the steps you took to get yourself like what was the kind of thought process behind like, saying I'm going to put myself out there more in terms of like speaking to people and like doing more, or was it just became natural when you found people?
that's a really good question. It was I think I just need to understand who I was really because I didn't know who that was because I'd almost change it depending on the crowd. Now it's like everyone gets the same version in a sense. You still obviously adapt to different people, but I didn't have much confidence in terms of who I was. And then for me, it was like I didn't know whether I'd be accepted. I cared about being accepted. Um, how to really like appease someone. And previously, everything was based on like trying to appease the crowd, and that's why I found it really hard to fit in. But now I'm like, you get the rawest version. You don't get someone that's like molding themselves, and you're a lot more confident in terms of that. And I think that was the biggest difference, massively.
Yeah, and what's the stuff now in terms of like the direction of values? What's the stuff you've kind of have linked in terms of where you want to take it and the direction you want to push into the new year, I guess?
In terms of values, like
Yeah, like values, personal goals.
nice. Take it to the moon, and I want to make sure like I don't leave myself behind because I think like you've probably seen this as well. Growth is a big value of mine, and like for me, like consistent change and as you grow, the business grows, and you can't have one without the other. So like typically, it's like for me, I'm almost gonna like growth is a big value of mine, and like for me, like consistent change and getting used to that. Like what happens now compared to 2 months from now should be different, and you get addicted to that self progress. I think that's like the biggest value, and then novelty is a big thing. Like I just want momentum in it. Like sometimes I say it and like obviously touch wood, like I'd rather go back and go than stay the same sometimes. I'm like I'd rather shit goes wrong and then I can fix it and that's progress rather than stay the exact same position. But like growth and novelty is like a big thing for me, and like collaboration, meeting people, I can say.
And I guess that's when you have that direction and that forward. Um, One thing, like one kind of story, I was speaking with Ben Mark on, and it just came to mind here was like with the Dubai trip, and I just thought it fit in perfectly. It was like um for me just being in Dubai, and I was like, Ben was like, "Oh, how was it?" and all of that stuff, and he said one thing to me was like, "Did you feel like you made it when you were there?" And like almost like he felt like it read my mind a little bit in terms of like I had like a moment where I was like seeing the skyline, seeing everyone else there, and I was like, "What am I kind of doing here?" Like, it feels quite surreal. Did you have like a moment for you where you're like, you had to like almost like feel like you made it because you've done,
Feel like it's working.
yeah, like, or and then you push forward again.
That's really fun that you Ben Mark pushed you to go to Dubai as well.
Yeah.
It's funny because the first time I went to Dubai, Ben Mark was like, "Mate, just book your flight. I'll see you in the Sandpier next week." I'm like, "Fine." He's convincing everyone, so he's definitely getting commission off that. But I think in terms of like a moment where I was like, "This actually works," it was probably like, I think the US event was quite big for me because like that was a goal I just set super randomly, and it was just because I thought I couldn't do it, and I was like, I don't like that thought process that I can't do it, so I'm gonna go off and do it and then prove myself wrong. That was like a big thing for me because like I've almost last year I was like I almost want to have like almost like break the mold a little bit with coaching, you can say, like do things that not many people are doing. So like let's do a live event in the US, go to like one of the best gyms in the world, get all the members there. It was like that was really cool for me, and like seeing everyone there in person. That was like a moment where I was like, fair play, that's actually worked really well. And then I think that was like the most recent. But besides that, I don't really. I'm kind of like almost too much looking forward as opposed to like staying here because I like if someone's like reflecting the year, I'm like I can't. I'm too focused on the future. Like I was really struggle with that. Are you the same?
Yeah, I say this to myself, and not many people actually get it. Like I probably worry if I look back too much, and I'm not gonna move forward.
100%. It's like you can't hang your hat on previous achievements, right? So like I don't want to hang my hat there and be like that's the big moment. I would rather it be something in the future as well. So I got something to look forward to.
Yes, I think it's a Hermosi quote from somewhere like "Only the paranoid survive." It's like perfectly summarizes like, um, and so with business over like 20, I guess since you've started, one kind of question I thought would be really interesting is the Irtaza from China just before getting into it. If you could like sit across him in a room and you were like he was just about to get into coaching, what's like a few of the big advices or
Yeah,
things
yeah.
you'd give him getting into it?
I say like the first one would be like, and it comes straight away. Is like back yourself because I used to have like a lot of limiting beliefs getting into it, and because as soon as I got into personal training, I was the youngest PT there. I think I was 20 or 21, and people would come to me, and I'm like, why are they gonna ask me? I'm 20 years old, and I genuinely do this. I'd refer them on to another PT and be like, oh, he's better than me. Go to him. Like I'd do that, and I was like, that's so limiting, because I didn't believe myself enough. I think that was like being able to back yourself and be like, actually, you're the shit, even if you're not. Like actually, like be able to push yourself forward, and I can't put others in a pedestal, which held me back. So I think the last thing you want to be doing is putting others on a pedestal because then you degrade power from yourself. And I did that. I'd almost be like, this person's better. This person's, steps ahead. They should be going to them as opposed to me. That'd be the first thing. And the second thing I think was like this year, I've probably seen it more than other years. Was like take your training seriously because like you grow as a character through like physical exertion, and also you see yourself grow. And I think I'd almost lose sight of that over the years. But the last, let's say, 18 months, I've doubled on that even more. And that's built a lot of confidence. And I think that's almost given me so much more certainty and conviction. So I think those two are backing yourself, but then doing something that's going to back, like, allow you to such a build confidence within yourself. I think that's like the difference more than anything. Because previously it was like you'd change yourself to meet someone else's needs, and you try almost like mold your character in terms of what someone else wants to be like. And then you'd almost lose sight of who you are, and you're kind of uncertain with a lot of things. And that was me for like years, the entire life. So yeah.
And with the first point in like, what's this kind of stuff you would, what are the kind of habits that you'd maybe do to back yourself, or is this literally just speaking your truth and just not necessarily even speaking your truth, but just actually saying I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. I'd say like you kind of need some conviction. It's like you need to do the thing you're gonna speak about. That's the biggest one. So like for me, it was like I realized when I push my own training, I can help someone else do the exact same thing to higher heights. Like when I'm taking myself seriously, then I can help others people because I'm actually seeing myself as like someone that can actually be a person of value. I think that was like actually having personal goals for yourself and actually achieving them and then stacking the next one. So I think that's like Charlie says all the time. We both work at Charlie Johnson. It's like it's all a person development game, and when you become the person that wants to achieve, you don't become you don't build this business. You become the person that actually the business grows from. If that makes sense. So it's like you become that new character, and that was like the person development aspects of it. I think that's like the difference for a lot of people too.
And I guess the image that comes to mind for me is like almost if you take yourself first seriously and you have standards right, you're like the I don't know the king or warrior or whatever in ancient times, like leading from the front kind of thing. Um, with the then the kind of more business technical stuff, I guess from it, like what do you feel like were the kind of 3 to 5 skills you're like I had to get really good at to get to where I am now? Like what if you had to like condense into little buckets or
Yeah. First one, risk taking. I'd say like not being afraid of investments or things you want to do. I just like being able to take risks because if you don't take a risk, you'll find yourself in the exact same position. That's the biggest thing. Second one, like, and this is something I always find to be common. If I haven't found myself in a low, I'm not doing this. If I found myself in a high, I'm doing this. It's like being quick to implement things. So if you've got an idea whether you want to do this or do an event or do this project or hire someone or reach out to someone, being quick to do that and being decisive. That's the second one. So risk taking, being quick to implement, and then third thing is probably getting networking. I think it's more like you'll meet people that actually push you to the next level. And for me, like going to live events over last year when we were part of the mentorship we had previously, was like me and those people like Reese, like Julian, like those people had like dramatic influence in terms of who you are, and they definitely did for me. It's like you meet a lot of people, you shake a lot of hands, and I think mastering that skill and not keeping to like a lone wolf is probably the next one. So I think those three is like risk taking, being quick to implement, and actually meeting other people that are doing the exact same thing that push you.
um I kind of see that a lot in terms of the massive action with the US with the Dubai stuff, the massive action with that. And I guess on the people one as well, it's probably gonna then help you action and do way more if you see other people doing it. Like whereas otherwise you're like, I'm working hard, but like you've got nothing to compare what you're meant to be doing or what output you're supposed to be.
100%. Like the mentorship we're in right now, it's like you think you do good, and then you see a Facebook group post, you're like, I need to keep working. Like, it's good though, right? But previously I was, I've done this, and everyone's behind me, and like I kind of get complacent. But now it's like, no, you need to keep on working. Like it depends on what you celebrate as well, and what you like yourself celebrate. I think it's quite cool to like compare up as opposed to compare down, because when you compare down, you get very complacent. When you compare up, you're like, there's just so much more potential here. So I think that's like looking up as opposed to looking back and comparing down is the biggest thing.
So with that, how would you actually take the time, or would you take the time and habits to celebrate and like milestones, or what's been some milestones you've even like milestones or like little mini celebrations you've kind of taken in terms of?
Not so much, I've because I think like kind of flagging onto the point earlier was like I almost think it's not worth celebrating in a sense sometimes. I'm not sure if you've ever had that. It's like, nah, it's not worth it for a celebration. Let's not do it. Have you ever had that?
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same. I think recently not as much, but I want to change that in the new year. I think, or just not in the new year, but like the next milestone. I actually want to celebrate it.
Cool. I see. Yeah, because I think otherwise, like if I'm maybe when I first getting into it, it's more like of a making it long term like enjoyable. But if you're enjoying every single day anyway, then
Yeah,
no need to.
like a fun thing is like you might have it as well. Like I prefer life at home than life away. If that makes sense. Like you can be in Dubai, in Bali, wherever you want to be, and for some reason I get more stressed out when I'm away than at home. And like I'd struggle to sleep. I'd be very less present. Where I'm here, I'm like this stability. So like for me, like travel used to be that thing of like amazing experiences. Now we just go for work reasons, but it's like I'd be a lot more present here as opposed to there. So it's kind of different because you just enjoy day to day even more.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say the same. As like I always say, like my dream days are just locking myself somewhere.
Close the blinds, everything's dark,
Yeah,
dark room, just work.
yeah,
Like it's that's the dream.
no distractions. So like,
100%.
yeah. So the with like the little mini stuff in terms of yours, it's gonna sound like a really weird question, but like I feel like I've seen you kind of start to like push in terms of like investing in yourself as well, in terms of like looking after yourself. Like, what was the process? And I think it's just only because it's something I'm guilty of like not doing.
Yeah.
So like, what was the kind of process in terms of just being able to do more of your like stuff that you like, investing in your own kind of happiness, or if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So like, I get that's a really good question to be fair. It's like, what's the process of and like how to invest into yourself and become better? Yeah, I think it's like I've and obviously I know your byproduct of it is like hiring coaches and asking for help. Like I'm almost like you get attracted to the person that's done the thing, and then you want to learn and do what they did. So like I've got two coaches like business and physique, um, and I'm almost like trying to like not imitate, but I'm trying to like get inspired by those and like take the action that they took to get to where they are. And for me, it's almost like having those role models and also the standard set as well is like the biggest thing. And I think probably the most important thing with coaching is like having someone believe in you. Like, no, you can actually gonna achieve that. You're actually gonna get there, and them laying the roadmap out with like complete clarity that you're actually gonna get to this dream solution. So whether that's in that physique or business, like you got complete transparency to know this person's done the thing and it's gonna work if you work. Um, I've almost set myself like every time I set goals, I always set fitness goals like automatically. I'm like, I want to be here, I want to be here in business. Those are the two big goals, and then personal goal is like typically I find myself almost complementing that with like fitness and business. So like as you grow those, you just find like different parts of you come out. So sometimes the ugly parts as well. You're like you realize actually you know, there's these are the motives or like there's that certain things. But I feel like having like the fitness goal like every single day, like knowing you've got a vision, like I know what the next year's gonna look like. Business as well. It's like those two like development points. I think that's just huge for me.
Yeah, amazing. And with the massive action you've taken in terms of goal setting, with investing and pushing, have you found yourself like quote unquote failing in terms of going backwards? Like I think you mentioned at the beginning, like failing because you've taken too big action, like you've done something that you shouldn't have done, like you made too big of a.
Yeah, I think I tend to kind of skip goals a little bit sometimes. I'm like, you kind of need to let your ego go out of the way and be like, you need to achieve this goal before you achieve the next. It's like saying I want to build this big thing before like building the foundation, and you kind of skip the steps. I find that's like almost pushed me back because I'm like, nah, not necessarily I'm too good for that, but I'm like, I almost feel like it's too low level. But like that's actually low hanging fruit. You should hang on to that because it's a quick win. But I think that's for me is like something I found myself guilty of massively. Like these last few months, I'm like trying to skip steps, not do it properly, and just kind of like do the thing that's most exciting at the top as opposed to do what's here. That's definitely one thing.
I see. And then I'm guessing for the big stuff you'd say within your coaching, like what are the kind of stuff you like even now you don't want to skip on doing, like what are the stuff that you know are gonna be like the non-negotiable stuff here to grow your or get your clients.
Yeah, I think for me, like consistently learning is a big thing now, and it's something that I value more now than I previously have ever before. Like I valued it, but I've almost found that dropped, and I realized like I'm more inspired when I'm learning things. Like for example, like obviously with how you do it, it's like with content, for example, like you should never run out of content ideas and continue to learn. Like if you're not ever like evolving, you run out of ideas. If you stay in the same, you'll be speaking about the same thing. So I find for me like growth and development in terms of like coaching and those coaching skills, whether it's like motivational interviewing, whether it's actually nutrition, training, mostly like psychology of change, like behavioral change. If you understand that and consistently start to understand more of it, you never run out of ideas, but you consistently grow yourself in terms of like how good of a coach you can be. And then second thing is mostly like I think right now it's the skill set I think I want to build now is more so to do with like conviction and communication. Like I'm kind of studying like comedy, for example. Like just like watching comedy and just seeing how they speak. Like I've picked up some people that say words, like they say sentences 3 words at a time, and I'm like, that's quite powerful. And I actually might make a note of that and try that for myself. Like tomorrow, I might just speak 3 words at a time at the event. But we'll see. It's like I think communication is like a big thing for me, like tonality and those things as well. Like having the message that you're gonna send out and actually the delivery of the message is quite powerful.
And that's still like the simple stuff you were doing at the start, but it's like just doing it better kind of thing, and improving on it rather than.
Doing it properly, yeah, massively. It's you kind of like get distracted with those things because you let it drop and then you gotta pick it back up, and it's like consistently. If you don't stop the moment you start, like amazing things happen.
And that might be where people might get stuck in terms of if they're not learning, they're posting the same content, they're working with the same people. But if when you're growing and you're learning, the people you work with, the people your content attracts, probably level up as a.
100%. It's people see you grow and they want to be part of the evolution.
Yeah, amazing. So with the the day-to-day stuff, I think you've mentioned this already, but you work like a lot. So your like your daily schedule look like now in terms of getting stuff done?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you actually say that because my magic hour is at 10 a.m. to 1 a.m., 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Like my magic time's the end of the day. So like, I remember someone asking me like, when do you write your content? I was like, do you actually want to know? They're like, yeah. I was like, midnight on a Saturday. Like, do that. Like literally tonight, I'll be writing my entire content for the new week. It's quite weird, but like it'll be. I get so many good ideas. Nobody's messaging you Saturday night, and it's like between like midnight and 2 a.m. I get so much work done. Like I get my entire content for the week done. That's kind of like a first thing I want to throw in there because it's quite funny. Someone was like, "When do you actually do it?" I was like, "Yeah, do you actually want to know? Yeah, Friday night, Saturday night. Go keep yourself in and go do your content." Days are usually the same. So like, it's pretty much honestly is the exact same. Like sometimes I want to share like an exciting lifestyle on Instagram stories. I'm like training, work, food, steps, like that sort of thing. And so I kind of like almost have my daily rituals, like especially nowadays. The morning is training. As soon as I wake up, within 10, 15 minutes, get to the gym, get back in another an hour, start work at like 9, probably finish like 9 till maybe 4ish, and then take a bit of a gap because I find myself like quite unproductive between 4 and 6, 4 and 7, and then pick it back up at 7. So I might do like a 9 till midnight, but then I keep like a 3 hour gap in between. And obviously walking and that sort of thing. When I'm walking, I send that voice notes, checking with everyone, do that certain things, like emails. But mostly it's like training in the morning, straight to work. Then you get like a gap and you still find productivity declines. And then the evening is like the magic hour. So I kind of find the first half of the day is like less thoughtful task. The evening hours is more thoughtful tasks like projects, content, and new ideas I want to build, that sort of thing. So I'm almost like react and then create in that sense.
Yeah, whereas I think most people or most advice you see is do it first thing in the morning. Like do that.
For some reason, I'm not sure if you're the same, but during the winter, I get myself into like a negative state in the morning. So like for me, training in the morning is like knowing for the body now. It's like for mental focus in a sense. As soon as I wake up, I get training in, get some caffeine in. I'm like quite ready to go. But previously, it's like a little bit of a drag getting out of bed sometimes. So as soon as I wake up and I'm actually gonna train, which is like my favorite thing to do. It's as soon as I get in there and I come out, I'm like I feel really good at that, and I'm quite ready to go.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's a good anchor to have in terms of like if stress happens or whatever happens, you've got something that anchors you in terms of like a mindfulness exercise training.
100%. It is quite mindful, to be fair. It's you can almost. I don't listen to music or podcasts when I'm training. I'm just like empty, and you process everything. So if you go to bed stressed and you wake up in the morning, release the stress, you feel like a lot more alert. Whereby if you go to bed working all night and then you wake up in the morning, you continue working, it's like unproductive. So I find that's definitely like a meditation thing nowadays, as opposed to like a physical thing. So
And then in the 9 to 4 block, how do you break it down? I guess the big thing I'm just wondering is like, what are the kind of people listening? It's going to be like 95% coaches. What are the kind of stuff like you would say are like, key pillars in terms of actual tasks like that you would do, like content, like spelling out like the simple like lead generation, like check-ins? Like how does that all kind of break down in terms of like tasks and time? And
So I do my check-ins on Monday between 9 and 2 p.m. and I get them all done by that day. So like most of it is mostly lead generation and set delivery systems as well. So like what do I need to improve, and like anything you find like a little bit of a leak in the bucket, you make a note of that and like kind of put some things into place. So it's like usually like research in terms of what do I need to stay on top of with social media trends. Lead generation myself, I always make sure I do it so then I can sharpen the blade and then give the blade to someone else. And then also like on top of that is almost reviewing the content I wrote from yesterday and just going through it again. And it's mostly like research and development more than anything, as well as lead generation. As well as like if I've got call slots available, it'd be between those times as well. I'll do a call like 11 p.m. if I have to, but most of the time I find those are the hours to take calls. So
and it's almost like it sounds like you just kind of keep it open, a bit more open rather than like penciling in everything.
yeah, in the evening I'm like penciling, this is a project. You need to do this, you need to do a lead gen, but is that very dialed in the evening? During the afternoon now it's a bit more like flow state. Like actually what do I need to fix and what do I need to do? If I don't need to do anything, I just do lead generation and do my own. As well as obviously the staff we have, but particularly it's like a bit of more free flow at the start, and then in the evening it's like, right, prime time. Let's just get for it. So.
Yeah, epic. And
How about you actually?
yeah, yeah, I found it similar in terms of like I've started being able to, for some reason, like I've struggled with the later times, but in recent times anyway, it's definitely more like AM time. Like I'm found doing like a 7 till 11 slot, like 4 hour slot, 4 hour gap to like train, walk, and then 4 hour gap again. So I'm done, I don't know, like 6, 7 p.m. It's kind of how I've done it.
Nice.
Yeah, and I guess with yeah, it just keeps me like I find like I try to go like longer periods and it just isn't as
Yeah, you find yourself just working just to be busy, right? So definitely a big thing.
and it's almost that fear sometimes of like adding more learning stuff and more research stuff is gonna like is unproductive, but in reality that's when you learn what actually works.
It's I'm not sure if you ever had it, but I stress work. If I get stressed at work, even if I've got nothing to do, I just feel in front of a laptop and like feel productive. Do you ever have that as well? It's easy, so easy to do. I'm like, if I have something go wrong, I'm like, let's get the laptop out. I feel productive and I feel good again, even though I'm not doing anything at all. I find myself in that cycle.
Yeah, and it's Ben Mark actually is getting a lot of messages mentions, but like he'd be like just take time off when you're not doing anything productive. So it's just knowing when you're not doing anything, I guess, and being mindful of when you need to step away.
100%. Like for example, like go get a haircut at 10 a.m. It'll be the most stressful haircut you get because you're like things are going wrong. I actively sometimes get a haircut on Mondays, and I'm like, you have like something at the back of your mind. You need to be here, you need to be there, and you'd go for a walk and be like, let's cut this walk short because there's things to do. Like I find myself in that cycle, and I'm almost like trying to drag myself back into the office. So it's funny that happens. I'm like, no, you've got nothing to do. Like you're done now. Let's just crack on. So
So I guess that's when maybe like for me is having like a I think from Charlie, even like 3 to 5 big things I need to do for the week, and then like it almost anchors me in terms of I need to do these tasks. If I find myself wandering, I just look at what the tasks are. If it moves forward, um, with hiring, and team management and the team now, what was the transition you made in terms of hiring the first person? Like why did you decide to do it, and what's kind of been your, I guess maybe start here and now.
yeah. So like the first process in terms of who we hired, or it's usually like tasks that are kind of like almost someone else can do that doesn't necessarily involve you being the face of it. So like for me, first it was a coach. Second was a appointment setter. Next one would be a coach, an appointment setter, etc. So it was almost like down that cycle. So the next hire is already going to be a coach, which you've got in January. The next one after that would be another appointment setter. So it's like you kind of continue to ride that wave. So as it grows, the next steps is hire this person, hire that person, then this person, and that person. It kind of like a little bit of a circle in a sense. That's most at the start was like the low level things within coaching that I need to delegate, like that side of things. So I've done that, and then we've got obviously the first coach, then we've got the setter. The next one will be the next coach. The next one will be the next setter.
Cool. And it's interesting because that's where I see sometimes people, and I don't really know the logistics behind it, but like sometimes coaches say like, I'm really good at coaching, so I outsource like content and lead generation completely. But what's been your kind of thought process behind like outsourcing more of the back end and not like your content still very much like you say you're still like fingers on the trigger?
I think content is the only thing you don't want to delegate really at the end of the day, because like you can hire copywriters but they can't speak how you'd speak. I think like content is the thing you should do by yourself until a certain point, but like that's probably the first thing where it's like if you want to come off and build your own thing, you can't just do plug and play systems. Like you can't just get a free ebook and just sell that, because that's not who you are. You have to make it your own in a sense. So then that's like the first thing, actually making your own voice to it. And then the coaching side of things, I think naturally you want to almost get yourself to a place where you build a team up, because then you're not just a person training, you're a business owner. And then having a mission and get people on the mission is quite big in terms of that. I've always like, I did the other way around, so I learned that I would almost do a lot of fulfillment by myself and just hire a setter. And I found actually, if I reverse that, you learn a lot of skill sets. So it's definitely worth actually flipping that and coach first, lead generation second, in terms of that delegation.
And then with delegating, like, was it quite easy for you to say, I'm gonna hire someone to do this, or was like, did you have like the full process of like it's all gonna break?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's more like it's hard like to actually build a team sometimes. Like I've obviously had people come in and I was like, it's not a good fit from the get go. I thought it was going to be, but it's not, and we need to get rid of them straight away. Like it's hire fast, fire fast in a sense sometimes. That's like the biggest thing, and just making sure that people actually know this is what you do. So like I kind of say from the get go, if someone comes on, like it's yes, we have working hours, but we do what we need to do. Like if that means we have to do this at a certain time and someone needs to call, or we need to kind of go the extra mile, like that's just the norm. It's a very good story. Have you been to Japan before? Cool. It's like I've never been, but I've heard this story from someone else, and like, I really love the story. It's like he went to a restaurant in Japan, and the service was like probably one of the best services they had. Like it was unbelievable, and the guy like Jackson, who told me the story, was like you guys are going above and beyond. He actually said this to the waitress. He was like, you guys are going above and beyond. Can I just tip you and thank you? They don't take tips there as much. And they're like, no, this is just what we do. And it's like, it's how interesting. It's like going above and beyond is just normal. That's the standard, and that's like the where you draw the line in the sand as a minimum. So when you can make that, and I always say that in coaching as well, like if I need to do this certain thing and it's like it's going to take a lot more time, like we just do what it takes. So I think nowadays is getting people that actually have that do what it takes mentality. If this means you work at this time and that time, then I'm all for it, because I do the exact same. But you also need to realize that people aren't going to be the exact same with you. So that's obvious, because if it is your own thing, you invest everything into it, and people obviously haven't got that same level of interest. But trying to find someone that has like that same mindset, where it's like, actually, if it's 6 p.m. and I need to clock off, but there's things I need to do, I'll carry on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess you probably find it with that mindset, you probably push the wrong hires away quite quickly when you're like quite hands on.
Yeah, it's like when someone says, "I've not got the time to do this," I'm like, "Sorry, that's a red flag straight away." Like, we don't have that vocabulary here. It's how you get it done. So,
Yeah, amazing. So with the coach hire, like, what are the kind of tasks? Again, and more from a implementable perspective. If someone wants to, like, a coach wants to like look at what the tasks they would outsource a coach to, and then
you can get like, so generally it almost be like you want to coach the person through the process first. I coached the coach that we actually hired, and for her it was like coaching her through her training, her nutrition, the mindset side of things, and what we believe in. And then for her it was much easier, because like you can implement first, then teach it over to clients later. So I think them going through the process first is quite valid and important, because then you can still train them up, and this is how we do things, but them doing it and living it and breathing it and doing it actually is the biggest like learning tool. So like actually being able to like take them through their own journey is the first thing. Almost find like you almost want to stack things up over time. So like first it was the accountability, like checking training logs, nutrition logs, certain things in terms of reminders, make sure everyone's like perfectly just fine and everyone's doing well. And then after that, taking on their own clients in a sense. So whether that's like taking onboarding calls, taking like connection calls, taking like their own like one-to-one calls in a sense. That's like the next thing if you want to. And then obviously the check-ins come on top of that too. So I think it's like taking them through the process, the low level stuff, the accountability, and then obviously because they've gone through those things, they know exactly how it's going to work, and then they can repeat the cycle for themselves.
Yeah, amazing. And with the other side, then with the setters and VA element, um, like I think you mentioned it as well, but like it works all so much easier when you still have your pulse on the trigger and it works. So like, what are the kind of tasks they do in your business now, and then what are the tasks you do? How does it break down?
So we do the same thing. So Leah, who's probably watching this, we do like a shadowing session every single day. So I jump on the call the start of each day and just make sure everything's good and things we need to do that day. It's mostly like generating leads and like booking calls most of the time through DMs, which I do as well. So like she may do 4 hours, I may do 2. Or she may do 8, I may do 2 again. So like in that sense, it's more of a case of like mostly within the inbox and managing that. We don't do cold outreach; it's mostly warm. That's just like something that kind of goes against my values, and it doesn't feel right for some reason. So we typically go with that, and like obviously have it where I still do it, but she does it, and we try to find different twists. So like certain things like I'll implement as like a 2-step call, and I'm gonna test it out, and then we're like, actually, this isn't working or it's working. Let's go push this more. Or certain things that offer lead magnets, or certain things in terms of like trying this style of approach, or here's a resurface conversation again, just trying your own things out, testing it, and then seeing the feedback and then passing it on. So I almost do the exact same thing that she does as well, but I do like half the time that she does.
Yeah, amazing. It's easy for you to like kind of lead from the front.
Yeah, because then she can see you doing it. How how quick you are, how well you do it, what you do right, what you do wrong, and then obviously learn from that. So it's almost like lead by example.
Yeah. And then for coaches that might not have the audience right now, what's the stuff to get more conversations open? Like, how would you create more? Like,
Yeah.
how do you do it within your stuff?
I love that. It's definitely the evolution. I think it's like the best way to actually explain this. Have you seen Rocky? Yeah. Have you like you probably know what happens at the end, right? And if it comes on TV, you probably still watch it, right? So people want to see the story fold out, and they want to see the hero's journey. I think you documenting who you are and how you're growing is like the most important thing. Like I'm always trying to like remind social media what I'm working towards and what my goals are, and they see the evolution over time, and they just see actually I want to be part of that. So you build the audience because you're leading it, and then secondarily is actually being a people's person that people actually want to speak to, having relatability, because like the Z connection formula is like attractive interest, common likes equals connection. So like attractive interest could be you're into training, you're obviously doing certain things they want to do, you achieve things they want to do. Common likes could be you like coffee, they like coffee, you like running, they like running. Sharing that equals connection. Combine the two, you can have connection, and connection leads to potential partnership.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think there's been a lot of value here, and a lot of kind of like niche topics we've gone into. Irtaza, where can people find you if they want to?
100%. Yeah. Let me ask you a question before we finish. What's been the biggest thing you've worked on for yourself this year? Personal and then business. Go to.
Personally, it's been a lot of like the mindset and the confidence behind trusting myself more in terms of like taking action. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it's like a Conor McGregor quote from TikTok or Twitter somewhere. Like, so I don't know. It's like a really old thing, but it's like if the mind follows, if you can kind of do anything if the mind follows. And I found myself like doubting like probably similar to the Irtaza story from trying to like doubting myself too much. So it's just been that process of like questioning those beliefs and
The way the body goes, mind follows. Yeah, that's so strong. I think that's like my favorite saying. It's like if you can convince yourself, then everything just falls from there. Because if you can master that, then everything else takes care of itself. Really, it's pretty huge, and that's kind of something I learned as well. It's a really good point. I'm actually speaking about that tomorrow in the seminar, so kind of compliments into that. So the first thing we speak about is like actually allowing yourself to push your body as well as your mind, but like you can't really tap into like full potential unless you tap into your psyche. So that's a big one. Love that.
and it's like you see so many like normal like even just motivational quotes podcasts, you see so many other normal people do it with like just believing for
Yeah, it's I'd rather have someone. It's funny you said that because like, so you know, like the whole self-help books fallacy. It's like you kind of get into that state where you can read all the books, but I'd rather you not read the books and just get messy with the action you're taking. I'd rather that than the reading the books and doing nothing about it.
Yeah.
So it's quite huge.
Yeah, like I've not read massively this year, but I feel like the stuff I have kind of picked up from podcasts or books, it's been like half a book I think I've read, like, and it's still like been super valuable. So like if you just action it. But yeah, where can people kind of find you to watch the evolution?
100%. So Instagram's probably the best platform. Most active there. It's ir.taza, TAZA. That's on Instagram. We're on pretty much all social media platforms. We have our own podcast, The Method Coaching, and that's pretty much where you can find me. Pretty much all social media platforms, same handle, and as well as a podcast.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you guys for tuning into this episode.
It's a pleasure, dude. It's good seeing you. Likewise.